I know every operating
At my
system like
last
the
job,
back of
in
my
my current
hand.
role,
I
I
have
25 years of experience and have worked with several people from your company. I've been recognized for my passion. My team is everything.
LinkedIn delivers candidates who rise above the rest. With an up-to-date view into shared connections, skills, and interests you won't find anywhere else. See why 86% of small businesses who post a job on LinkedIn get a qualified candidate within a day. Post a job for free at linkedin.com/achieve. LinkedIn, your next great hire is here.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Patterson.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
And we have someone who's on radio for the first time today. And that is the 55th governor of the state of New York, the Honorable David A. Patterson.
That's only because there were no programs at 5 and 6 in the morning. Or I would have found a way to get on.
Thank you. And we're privileged to have with us someone that we've come to know and admire over the years, Alan Abramson of the firm of Abramson and Morak here in New York, a well-known criminal defense attorney. So you two gentlemen take his card with you wherever you go. It's always helpful to have it in your wallet. Alan?
Thanks a lot, Rabbi.
Alan, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure, Rabbi. Hello, Rabbi, Reverend, Governor. So nice to hear your voice.
And all of America is listening to what you have to say, Alan.
That's right.
So let's talk. Everybody obviously is looking at the recent development with Mayor Adams. I don't think everybody understands all of the ramifications of it. Talk about the case.
Okay. Well, what happened is the Justice Department down in Washington sent a memorandum to the Southern District of New York, which is one of the local U.S. Attorney's offices, and the memo instructed the Southern District to dismiss the case against Mayor Adams without prejudice. And what that means is that the case is dismissed, but the case can be reconsidered and refiled after the mayoral election in November. Not the primary, but after the election in November. And this was not based on a Justice Department review of the evidence or the legal theories that were used. They make that very, very clear in that letter. They say they're doing this because they believe that the case against Mayor Adams was brought for political reasons because Mayor Adams criticized the Biden administration on immigration issues. And the second reason they gave was that this case, while it's pending, would unduly restrict the mayor's ability to devote his full attention to issues of immigration and to crime, which the memo says is out of hand in New York. So they instructed the Southern District to dismiss the case, again, without prejudice, which means it can be reviewed again after the mayoral election. And as a matter of fact, the U.S. attorney, the acting U.S. attorney, Ms. Sassoon, that was handling the matter, just resigned rather than fulfill the request by the DOJ. And just so you know, the Southern District is part of the Department of Justice. They do have a reputation for being very, very independent. They're often known as the Southern Sovereign District of New York. But it's the DOJ that runs the Justice Department, and the Southern District is part of that Justice Department. So they get to call the shots. And that's what they have instructed the Southern District to do with the case. Again, not based on evidence, not based on legal theories, but based on how the case was initiated and how the case would affect the mayor while he's serving as mayor.
Can I ask you a question? Because there are those who are saying that this, without prejudice, and thank you for explaining that to our listeners, represents strings attached. That there's a degree of control over the mayor in this deal. Is that true? Do we understand it that way?
Well, true is a difficult word to say. I can say that Mr. Bove, who is the acting U.S. attorney down in D.C., he in the memorandum, it makes it clear that the government is not offering this dismissal in exchange for anything. Is the mayor's cooperation or don't criticize the current administration. That's what they're saying. But there are many people who believe, well, how could that possibly how could that possibly work? I mean, if the mayor is critical, it seems likely that he's not going to get the kind of consideration he wants once the election is over. And it does appear to many people that there are strings attached, that the mayor has to, perform his job in a certain way and act in a certain way in order for the Justice Department to ultimately dismiss the case. There's something hanging over his head.
But, Alan, could they say, criticism of the administration is going to be held against you? I mean, they couldn't use that kind of language.
It's certainly not going to be stated like that. But you can't help but believe that the mayor, understands that he has received a break that is truly extraordinary. Look, whether you agree with it or not, I think everyone would have to agree that something like this has never happened before. I mean, certainly I've been doing this now almost 40 years, both as a former prosecutor and as a defense attorney. And I've never seen a case dismissed under these circumstances. And I don't know how Judge Ho is going to react to this. The judge can't refuse to dismiss the case because there are practical reasons. He says, okay, this is improper. I'm not going to dismiss this case. Well, there has to be a prosecutor to prosecute it. And the government is saying, look, we are not going to prosecute the case.
Yeah.
You're speaking of Manhattan federal judge Dale Ho, right?
That's correct.
In terms of dismissing the case.
Governor, I think you might want to ask something, right?
I just find this situation to be reflective of a lot of things that are going on around us that are not the way they used to be. I'd put it that way. Just in the sense that Mayor Adams' lawyer got up the next day and said, oh, no, this case is over. This is over. That was just some writing at the end of the case. Yeah, but it was writing by a member of the Justice Department basically saying exactly what Alan explained to us just a minute ago. And I guess somehow they're going to go on and now pretend that statement about without prejudice isn't there when it is there.
Governor, it is absolutely there. I was also concerned when the mayor had his own press conference and he thanked the Justice Department for dismissing the case. He said he's 100% innocent. He didn't do anything wrong. He'd never break the law. He would never countenance anyone breaking the law on his behalf. And he's so glad that this is behind him, and it never should have happened to begin with. Well, that's not what has happened here. They didn't say he's innocent. He didn't do anything wrong. They're saying that for other reasons, we're going to put this case, without using the word dismissed, it's being held in abeyance, actually.
That's really the right term. You really hit the nail right on the head, Alan. And the other thing is he's going to have about 6 or 7 opponents in a primary who are going to interpret that way as well, and they're going to interpret very often.
That's correct.
But Alan, if you were advising the mayor, if you were your client, would you tell him to say shouldn't have been brought against me? It was improper. I'm innocent. Or was that something you would expect him to say?
Lawyers do. Every lawyer has a different way of handling their case and representing their client. If it was me, that's not what I would have told my client to say. I think he's putting himself out there in a way that is somewhat disingenuous, and it could come back to bite him. And if I was his lawyer, I certainly wouldn't have said, no, the case is over. Those are just some superfluous words at the end of a press conference or anything. That is not accurate. That is not accurate. And
so I have a question for you. So, in order to revive it sometime in the future, does there have to be new charges, new evidence?
No, it stands as it is
based upon the existing case that it can be revived.
It stands as it is, but what the order to the Southern District also provided for is that while the case is still in abeyance, they can't do any further investigation or take any other action.
Right.
Right. But at this point, just from everything that I've read and everything that I've heard, there is a full case to go against the mayor. I mean, the case was scheduled to be tried in April, and April is, just around the corner. So they're ready to go. They don't need any new evidence at this point.
So it had nothing to do with the strength of the case.
They made that very, very clear. Again, it said it has nothing to do, it's not based on evidence, and it's not based on even legal theories.
We're here with Governor David A. Patterson, the 50th governor of the state of New York, and Reverend A.R. Bernard, and I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik. Stay tuned for more of the Reverend
We'll
Rabbi.
be right back. Yeah, we'll be right back right here on Red Apple Audio Network.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
¿Dónde están los $5 millones que me robaste?
Gloria tendrá que encontrar el dinero. Su vida y la de su hijo dependen de ello.
Hay que acorralar a la viuda.
¡Tengo mucho miedo, mamá!
El peor de los caminos será el único posible.
A mí no me importa ir a la cárcel con tal de salvar a mi hijo.
En la nueva superserie de Telemundo.
Esta mujer es clave. Que empiece la cacería.
La Jefa. Martes 18 de febrero a las 10:09 Centro. Por Telemundo.
You know what's smart? Enjoying a fresh gourmet meal at home that you didn't have to cook. Meet Factor, your loophole in the laws of mealtime. Chef-crafted meals delivered with a tap, ready in just 2 minutes. You know what's even smarter? Treating yourself without cheating your goals. Factor is dietitian approved, chef prepared, and you plated. Pretty smart, huh? Refresh your routine and eat smart with Factor. Learn more at factormeals.com.
This episode is brought to you by Abercrombie. There's nothing better than the perfect jean and going out top combo, or an outfit that perfectly matches your plans. Abercrombie's relaxed jean goes with every occasion. Date nights with something lace, or daytime with a cozy sweater. And their barrel jean will surprise you. It's the trend that will become a staple in your wardrobe. Abercrombie denim comes in tons of rises, fits, and washes. Find your perfect pair online or in store.
Reverend A.R. Bernard, Rabbi Joseph Potasnik, the Rev and the Rabbi.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
And with us, wait, let me just tell everyone, who's with us today. Yeah. We got the 55th governor, state of New York, the Honorable David A. Patterson. And we have criminal defense attorney, a good friend to all of us, personally, not professionally, but a good friend to all of us, Alan Abramson of the firm of Abramson and Morak here in New York City.
Yeah,
Rabbi, I think you have a question.
Yeah, we were talking about this during the break, and I'm curious to know, and this is speculation both on the part of the governor and Attorney Abrams, the public perception, and that's powerful. It's like we feel safe or we don't feel safe in the city of New York because of crime. A public perception of the action of the Department of Justice, who really don't know the law. Will it give the impression that the DOJ and the president can do something like this because the case wasn't strong against Mayor Adams in the first place?
Well, I think if there's a public perception, it would be about much stronger charges than have been levied so far. What I thought was kind of very interesting about this particular case is that everybody seems to have read what the indictment said. And my understanding is that most people who read it thought it was not a particularly strong case. But remember the late Judge Saul Wackler once said, you can indict a ham sandwich if you want to. So I think that a lot of times what the prosecutors put in, they put in part of the case. It might not look like something, but they've got other evidence they're going to bring later.
Well, that's without question. When a prosecutor presents a case to a grand jury, they don't put in the whole case. They just put in highlights of the case. In federal court, oftentimes they don't call witnesses to the grand jury. They'll call agents to testify as to what witnesses said. They put in a very, very bare bones case. And then when the case goes to trial, that's when they'll fill the case out with all the evidence that they have. But although it's true that, you could even indict a ham sandwich, especially in the Southern District and in most federal courts, there is a conviction rate of, probably somewhere between 96 and 98%. So, yes, it's easy to get an indictment. It's tougher to win a trial, but in federal courts, the government has a pretty high conviction rate. But if I may, let me just read one line from the memo that went to the Southern District from DOJ. It says the Justice Department has reached this conclusion without assessing the strength of the evidence or the legal theories on which the case is based, which are issues on which we defer to the U.S. Attorney's Office at this time. So they've gone out of their way not to say, it's a weak case, there's not much to it. They're saying, no, this has nothing to do with the evidence in the case. We're deferring to the prosecutors that have brought the case.
So
it's something different.
So at some time, Governor, Allen, Rev, we have issues in New York that have to be confronted. Do you reach a point where we move on and we don't keep going back, with the indictment and the DOJ? Do we get over this at some point and look at everything else, Governor?
Well, I think we're over it to the degree that Mayor Adams is going to run for mayor. He's going to run in the primary. There's some speculation as to which party he might choose to be in a primary.
Or which parties. Mm-hmm. Might be both parties, right?
Right.
Yeah,
that's what I meant.
Yeah.
And then you have, the 54th governor of the state of New York, Andrew Cuomo, who held executive positions that were elected offices for 14 and a half years in this state. So he would obviously be a qualified person who's running against him. Brad Lander is a controller. He's done a good job. He's running. Scott Stringer is running. So you've got a lot of people contesting him. And hopefully, now that this issue with the Justice Department has been resolved, at least temporarily, they can get back to the mayor doing his job, the mayor running in a primary, and the opponents trying to make the case of how they could do a better job.
Yeah, I'm amazed. I keep thinking, I keep going back to public perception because the public has been influenced by so much rhetoric. And between now and a mayoral election, there's going to be enough time to really pump out the idea that this was, a weaponization of the legal system against the mayor that went over quite successful with, it seems, with President Trump. So I'm just curious the degree to which the public is going to be influenced.
Or they're going to say, look, the case obviously wasn't that strong, and he was cleared, and let's move on. Let's talk about issues impacting our lives every day.
Yeah,
Rabbi,
that affects voters.
Remember, he wasn't clear. The mayor has not.
No, that's what I'm talking. What the mayor says. This is what the mayor's position. I've been cleared of everything. Let's talk about what impacts your lives, not about something that happened before.
At the UPS Store, we know being a small business owner means holiday time is still go time. Still get those orders shipped time, and still re-up on stamps and supplies time. That's why this upcoming holiday, while others close up shop, we'll be open and happy to help you keep being unstoppable. Come into your local store today. Most locations are independently owned. Product, services, pricing, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS Store. Be unstoppable.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Well, look, Reverend, you use terms, weaponization of the Department of Justice, lawfare. I mean, those terms are now, part of, common parlance. That's what everybody uses those terms. They didn't exist just a little while ago. But now that's how everybody sees things. And it's really problematic. Look, I'm not saying that prosecutors' offices, are always perfect and they always bring cases for the right reasons. People are human. Prosecutors' offices are staffed by human beings that can make mistakes. It does happen. But when people lose faith in the ability of prosecutors to bring a valid case, when every case is questioned, that really has a terrible effect ultimately on the public. And you're going to start seeing
on the faith in institutions, right? They don't trust the institutions if this becomes the vocabulary of the day.
Right. And if the mayor's painted as a victim, the public is going to lean in that direction.
Right.
Alan Abrams, I'm sure in your history, you've experienced where public opinion weighed heavily on the outcome of a case. Yes?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Alan, my question is the weaponization of these retorts that have come out, I think have really hurt prosecutors' offices and the criminal justice system in general. And the former U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, Damian Williams, they just write every day ad hominem that he was actually trying to run for higher office and all these other things. And I just think that's very unfair. Now, I'm biased because I know him personally, but I just thought that was an outrageous way to treat him, even if they wanted to relieve him of the case.
I think most practitioners would tell you that Damian Williams was a very fair-minded U.S. attorney, and that most people will also tell you that almost without exception, every prosecutor that they've ever dealt with in the Southern District, they don't always agree with them, but these are generally fair-minded public servants that are doing important work. But now these people are under attack.
Yeah. We're talking with Alan Abramson, firm of Abramson Morak, Governor David A. Patterson, Reverend A.R. Bernard. Let's talk about the media. The media, how it presents the information here, because the media often has its own particular, slant on something. And there are those who are going to say, look, this was not a strong case. And others will say, well, there's a condition attached to it. Talk about the media here, Alan, because you've dealt with the media very often.
Yeah, I do. And, this is a very difficult question for me because, I grew up, loving, newspapers and watching Walter Cronkite and, the best of the best. And, today, it really depends who you're listening to. I think facts are fungible these days. Everybody cherry picks whatever facts, support their argument and ignores ones that don't. The media, I don't like to use the term the media, but certain, but news outlets can have a point of view and they look for ways to support that point of view, oftentimes ignoring the facts that don't support them. But they have a tremendous impact on the public, and the public just listens to whatever media source they feel is closest to their political views, and it just reinforces things that are not helpful, I think, overall to a proper functioning society.
Mm. We've got to go to a break here, another break, and we're grateful to have Alan with us on this portion of the show. There's a lot more to talk about. So please stay tuned. We'll be back with more of The Rev and the Rabbi right here on Red Apple Audio Network.
Reverend A.R. Bernard, Rabbi Joseph Pachasnik, The Rev and the Rabbi. Reverend A.R. Bernard, Rabbi Joseph Pachasnik, The Rev and the Rabbi.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Pachasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
And we're joined again by the 55th Governor of the State of New York, the Honorable David A. Patterson, and Alan Abramson of the firm of Abramson and Morak here in New York City. And thank you, America, for being with us for this program. So there are other issues.
No.
Besides you, Governor, besides you, that are occupying a lot of time. I got to tell you something. I think people who are normal, who are fair, condemn Kanye West. I'm a little sick and tired of the attention he's getting, But when you say you admire Hitler, when this becomes, the story, obviously people have to stand up. And I think a number of people have stood up, but it is sickening what he did and the fact that, that we have to give him any airtime. But we would be delinquent if we didn't.
Of course, you're talking about his latest rant on social media where he says, I'm a Nazi, and Jewish people actually hate white people and use black people, and some of his best
should be our slaves.
And he doesn't trust any of them. These hateful remarks. So we've got to talk about that, what it means, and then we've also got to talk about the AI-generated clapback, and I'll explain what a clapback is to you, Rabbi. Introduce you to the language of the street.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But how do we deal with someone like a Kanye West, gentlemen?
Well, it's hard to imagine a mind that feels comfortable saying the things that came out of his mouth, and he's done this off and on for years, without understanding that really 80% of what he really wants is attention. And we're in a society now where you get attention. And we just left a different subject, but I think even in that case, there's nobody like Kanye West. But what I'm really saying is, if you really want to give people a hard time or frighten whole communities, particularly communities that have been victimized historically over centuries, you go out and say something like this, and then you turn around and sort of act like it's okay. It's not okay. But I don't think that the condemnations have surpassed the pain that he caused by talking.
It's a moment. It's a moment for faith leaders of all different faiths, and people of conscience, to stand together to condemn it with one voice. It's just outrageous. He knows what he's doing. As you say, he loves attention. He craves it. He gets it. But it doesn't diminish our responsibility to respond to it. It's just too dangerous to let it go unaddressed.
And it's more than anti-Semitism. He targeted people with disabilities, other racial groups. So it's quite broad, in terms of his attack on the other. And it's crazy because he, as a person of color, is one of the other. And yet he's engaged in this type of offensive language, offensive rhetoric.
Well,
I think it's tough. You don't want to give him more of a spotlight, but I think something like this requires condemnation, not only from faith leaders, but our political leaders as well. And it has to be with a clear voice. Maybe our politicians and our faith leaders can get together and speak as one, but everybody has to condemn what he has said. It is so out of bounds. This isn't an opinion. It's just so out of bounds, so hateful, and so destructive that I do think, responsible political folks have to.
I'm glad you said that, Alan, because if we don't collectively confront this charge, what do young people think? What are we saying to young people? You can get away with it.
Well, Rabbi, the head of United Healthcare was murdered on the street at 7 a.m. in the morning about 2.5 months ago, and it was condemned widely by everyone. But then there was this counter movement where he apparently has $2 million now to fight the case with from people who were cheering him on for what he did.
I mean, the perpetrator.
Exactly. So this is more than just, some ridiculous rhetoric from a, second-rate rap artist in the first place, to some kind of feeling in our society that we are going to enhance the reputations of people who really need to be put away.
So, does it represent an anti-establishment ethos in our culture? Anything institutional? Because I heard some of the reactions in favor of the perpetrator against United Healthcare, and they saw him sticking it to the institutions, the established power.
Yeah.
Is that where we are as a society?
As if what he did was justifiable. Yeah. Alan,
let me just say that, I've actually spoken to quite a few young people about this, and I'm shocked at how they feel that this was a justified action, or that he got what he deserved.
Wow.
And from my perspective, I think in terms of, how would I pick a jury if I was a prosecutor or a defense lawyer in this case? And I'm just stunned at the amount of support that this guy has. Look, we've all had many of us have had terrible experiences in dealing with our health insurance. But there's no justification. It was a cold-blooded assassination. And the idea that this guy has fans and supporters, and it's frightening, and we have to understand what these things are doing.
Let's go beyond this guy. We saw young people who were saying that bin Laden was right in what he did. We see young people who support Hamas. It's what they're doing is right. So the people.
Look, just the other day there was somebody once again talking about how 9/11. Jews got warning to stay away on 9/11. I mean, we just continuously feed this hate into our system, and it's going to really blow up one day.
And I got to tell you, given the precipitous increase of anti-Semitism around the world, these kind of statements contribute to the spread as well, because it becomes popular sentiment. And attack. Look at the number of Jews that have been attacked. You pick up the paper almost every day, and you're reading about an attack on a Jew on the street, on a subway, not just in New York, around the world. They read about it in Australia, in Great Britain, in France. Attacking Jews is become fashionable in some places.
And Rabbi, let me just expand it just a little bit. I mean, you have a horrible tragedy, a plane crash, and all of a sudden we're talking about DEI, that it's because of diversity, that, we don't have competent people anymore. I mean, that is dangerous. That is absolutely dangerous. DEI had nothing to do with a plane crash, for God's sake.
And they were still fishing the bodies out of the Potomac. And that was the first thing the president wanted to talk about after he offered his prayers to the family, and then went into all other kinds of, political scores that he wanted to settle with people from previous administrations. And look, his administration is doing a lot of things now that they can do. When they start telling states, giving them orders, that they're going to have to follow them. But the point is that I just think the tone is just reprehensible.
Well, irresponsible rhetoric should be countered by responsible rhetoric. That's what it says. Rev, we come almost to the end of the program. Our first syndicated program since we came on the air. And it's a great moment for us, and we were thankful to people around the country who are listening to us. So, Rev, your final comment.
Wow. I'm just grateful for the opportunity to expand our reach and to launch it with incredible individuals such as Governor David Patterson and Attorney Alan Abramson, who really contributed greatly. So I know our listening audience were inspired as well as informed this morning.
And Alan, let me say to you, I remember your parents of blessed memory listening to every program that you were on and calling me and saying that was the best program you ever had. They never called me and said that when you weren't on the air, but every time you're on the air, this is the best program. And they were so proud of you, and rightfully so. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for mentioning my folks. It means the world to me.